Welcome to Gracefully Graying. I am your host, Attorney Henry Gornvine. Today on Gracefully Graying, I am very pleased to welcome as our guest Geriatric Care Manager Stefanie Sinks as she leads us in navigating the aging journey. Stefanie, welcome to Gracefully Graying.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. First of all, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and your background?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as you mentioned, my name is Stefanie Sinks. I am originally from Massachusetts, where I started working with older adults after college. I was working at the Massachusetts General Hospital, working with the nursing and care management departments, along with social work, to help with complex discharge planning, as well as rehabilitation planning and discharges. I realized that I really wanted to spend more time working with the actual patient or the individual as opposed to the professionals, and applied for graduate school after a brief time at a nursing and rehab center also in Massachusetts. I moved to Michigan in 1998, and I attended the University of Michigan School of Social Work, where I studied interpersonal practice in healthcare and also a specialist in aging certificate. So I graduated with a master's in social work and the specialist in aging certificate. I had a couple of jobs throughout my career after graduate school. I worked at the Alzheimer's Association Greater Michigan chapter as a counselor care manager. I worked with a geropsychiatrist doing a couple of FDA clinical trials for Alzheimer's treatment medications, and eventually found my way, after a few other opportunities, to launching my own geriatric care management practice in 2013. So I've been doing that in private practice along with some professional guardianship for the last 13 years.
Stefanie, you've got quite an impressive background. And
Thank you.
Went to the School of Social Work, Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Why don't you tell our viewers exactly what a geriatric care manager is?
Sure. A geriatric care manager is an individual, usually either a social worker or a nurse, sometimes an occupational therapist, who helps to navigate what we call the aging journey. So we work with older adults in the community as well as their support networks, whether it be friends, family, neighbors, what have you, to promote and preserve independence and autonomy, recognizing that that's going to look different depending upon what the situation is. So we get people connected with the various services and supports. I'm able to do capacity evaluations to determine if somebody is able to continue making their own decisions in their best interest, whether it be medical or financial, residential decision-making. So we work, in my case, I do a lot of work with the probate courts and with elder law attorneys, again, to preserve independence and autonomy, but also to protect individuals. We work closely with the various health systems in the community, getting people connected to proper medical treatment and associated services that will preserve their ability to be safe.
Very impressive. I mean, I think we talked earlier and you had told me you're like the conductor of an orchestra where you're trying to coordinate all the various moving parts, for lack of a better word.
Correct.
So why don't you tell us more about some of the services that you do provide?
Sure. So I love that analogy. Sometimes I think you also mentioned it as being the quarterback. So
exactly.
A geriatric care manager, there's so many people who are involved in caring for an older adult. And sometimes we run into a difficult situation where there is nobody. So our job is to get those folks involved, whether it be getting the older adult connected to a geriatrician, so a physician who specializes in working with older adults, getting people connected to home care services, so private duty home care supports that will help with bathing, dressing, cooking, toileting, what we call activities of daily living. We're able to get people connected with skilled home care services, so physical therapy, occupational therapy, nursing, speech therapy. Also, as I mentioned earlier, if someone has not yet done their advance directives, it's very, very important that we really push them to get their wishes on paper. A lot of people don't like to talk about the what ifs in terms of mortality or in terms of a lack of capacity. but the goal is really to honor someone's wishes and to make sure that somebody is designated to have the authority on their behalf in an effort to avoid going into the probate courts. We also want to make sure that they've done all of their financial planning to make sure that their assets are preserved as best as possible. We're able to assist in making decisions insofar as residential care. If somebody is no longer able to live in their own home, we're able to provide assistance and support in locating a residential community for them to move to, depending upon the level of care and what their interests are.
You know, what you're doing is great because, getting old, the old saying, getting old is not for sissies, and it's so true. And
It is very true.
It's frightening as you get older, and there's so many things. I had a friend, a very close friend, who used to say that life is full of minefields, and you don't know what's going to get you, but something is. And I think there's a lot of truth to this.
Mm-hmm.
What are the goals of your service, Stephanie?
Sure. The goals are always to preserve independence and autonomy. Certainly, that's going to look different for someone who has severe physical limitations or cognitive issues. But people do have the ability to make decisions. It's just a matter of determining what kinds of decisions are they able to participate in making. Somebody who has capacity has the ability to decide what they want in terms of where they're going to live, how they're going to use their resources, who they are going to allow in their inner circle, what doctor is going to be the right fit. But somebody who has diminished capacity, we have to change some of those efforts in terms of, certainly you want to give them choices in terms of, do you want to wear the blue sweater or the green sweater, for example. But insofar as the bigger decisions, whether it's safe to continue driving, for example, they may not have the ability, and people forget that driving is a privilege. It is not a right. So we have to assist in helping people to make safe decisions. And when they can't, then we have to jump in and either activate a power of attorney, or we have to petition the probate courts for guardianships and conservatorships. But the goal, as I've said a few times, is really to preserve that independence and autonomy as best as possible.
It's amazing because, you're really covering so many things. I mean, you're really touching on, there are medical issues, there are legal issues, there are financial issues, there are, just issues in daily living, whether you can still remain independent. I mean, you really have a lot of things that you're dealing with, and I'm impressed by what you've said so far.
Thank you.
Stephanie, how can a geriatric care manager support an individual and his or her care partner?
I think a geriatric care manager can be pivotal in the relationship in so far as family dynamics. Oftentimes I hear the adult children saying, they just won't listen to me. I see what's happening and they just won't listen to me. And I jump in and I say, it comes with being the offspring. I have my own situations that I deal with in terms of family dynamics. Very, very difficult when it is your own loved one. But oftentimes the older adults are a little bit more inclined to receive the information if it's coming from a professional. And somebody who has the background that I have is maybe a bit more credible in terms of being able to provide that professional opinion, opine on what is maybe best in that individual's best interest. It may be the exact same thing that their adult child has told them, but coming from a professional, it's maybe a bit more tolerated. And so the professional coming in as the geriatric care manager is able to kind of calm the waters a bit. And what I always tell families is, my desire is for you to go back to being the wife or the husband or the adult child, and not to have to be the decision maker or the caregiver or the person who ends up the bad guy. There are plenty of times where I say it's more important to me that relationship is preserved. If I can come in and upright the ship and kind of provide some stability, it's okay that I become the bad guy, because I'm not going to be there forever, assuming things continue to go smoothly.
I'm curious, Stephanie, how do you meet people? I mean, are you referred through attorneys or through the courts? Just tell us a little bit about how that
Right.
works from your perspective.
Having been doing this now for 13 years in private practice, I'm fortunate because a lot of the referrals I receive are through word of mouth, whether it be former clients and their family members or professionals in the community. As I mentioned, I've been in Michigan and Ann Arbor since 1998. And one thing I've learned is you never burn bridges. So I keep in touch with a number of colleagues that I've worked with and known over the years. Actually, I was just a feature in a cover story in the Detroit Free Press in May discussing geriatric care management and the goals of care management as a result of a relationship that I had through my time at the University of Michigan School of Social Work. The journalist had reached out to the School of Social Work. So I think a lot of it is definitely through past and current relationships. There's also an organization called the Aging Life Care Association, which is the kind of the parent organization for care managers. It used to be called the National Association of Professional Geriatric Care Managers. And they have a find an expert link on their website. And so oftentimes I will receive referrals from that website. And then certainly, as I mentioned earlier, the work that I do is often within the legal system. And so I do get a number of referrals from elder probate attorneys.
You've built quite a network, very impressive.
Thank
Stefanie,
you.
are there benefits to establishing a relationship with a care manager early on in the aging journey?
Most definitely. My push these days has been to be proactive, to make your wishes known, to have a plan. None of us, I have yet to hear someone say, I can't wait to move into a long-term care community. It just doesn't happen. Independent living, maybe, if people don't want to have to deal with the hassles of home ownership, but still want some independence and freedom. But I think that the goal is really to put into place what your wishes are. As I say, even if you don't think that you're going to ever move into a community, go out there and see what's out there. Accidents happen. And the numbers of times I get calls from people saying, we spoke 3 or 4 years ago, you gave us all of this information. Unfortunately, we didn't do anything with it. And now we're in a crisis. And now any place that may have been appealing to them if they needed residential care is working on a significant wait list. And so we have to look at what's available. It may not be their preference. But again, putting in place their wishes through legal documents, but also just having an idea as to the services and supports that are available to them, I think is going to be very empowering.
I'm curious, Stefanie, what are the typical ages of your clientele? I mean, when do you consider starting the aging journey with someone such as yourself?
I would say my average client age is probably in their 80s, mid 80s. My youngest was unfortunately in her 30s and had some illnesses consistent with what we might find in an older adult. But I don't think it's ever too soon. I think if you're young enough and healthy enough, if you can find a long-term care insurance option, I would certainly suggest buying into it now because costs for aging, it's no joke. It's expensive. Private duty home care these days, if somebody needs private duty home care in their own home for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're looking at about $30,000 a month. So if you have the ability and can buy into long-term care insurance, I think it's really important that you start the process early. Again, legal documentations, getting those in place early. I think that when people start to look at retirement is probably when it's time to start looking at the next step in our aging journey. What do we hope for the next, hopefully, 20, 30 years?
You know what would help our viewers, Stefanie? Could you take us through kind of like an initial consultation? Again, I'm just talking like a lawyer, but I guess it would apply to what you do. Someone contacts you, you meet with a family, and I'm sure often, I know as we're aging, there's a lot of denial. I mean, people don't want to accept certain things.
Right.
I have some friends right now who are in early stages of Alzheimer's, and you're dealing with, as you said earlier, they can no longer drive. So you're dealing with these issues and there's a lot of denial. And often you have family members who have different purposes. Someone may be saying, let's do another one, may be very resistant. So how do you navigate some of these treacherous waters? Tell us, our viewers, a little bit about this from your perspective.
Right. When I get a phone call inquiring about services, if somebody's interested, I always make a little joke and say, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to invite myself over to your house. It's best for me to see the individual in their environment, to see how they're navigating the home from a safety perspective, but also I'm able to get a better sense in terms of their abilities to navigate the activities of daily living. So the things that we talk about, bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, but also what we call instrumental activities of daily living. So IADLs, things that involve executive function, sequencing, organization, task-oriented types of things. So medication management, managing a calendar, following a recipe. What's really critical is someone able to manage their finances? Do they know the difference between $100 and $10,000? And I say that because I've seen this unfortunately happen where people have made banking mistakes that have been quite significant. So I'm able to come in, do an assessment in the home, make recommendations. There's specific questions that I will ask that are specific to their safety and their ability to think through a safety issue. For example, if there were a fire in your home, what would you do? The goal is certainly to say, I would get out of the house and I would call 911. I have had some responses. One was I would climb into the kitchen cabinet. Another was a gentleman who enjoyed his alcohol and reached for his bottle of alcohol and said I would pour it over to put the fire out. So those types of responses are extremely telling in terms of the safety and the thought process of that individual. And then what's very important is to hear what their goals are and what do they want for their future as best as they can, recognizing that not everything is going to be possible, but I'm very proactive in terms of figuring out if there's a way to get something done, let's do it. So we're going to work together as a team, and I will provide the support. I always tell people, as long as you have the capacity, what you do is your decision. I will be here to help pick up the pieces if they fall apart. And then with my clients, I tell them utilize my services as much or as little as will be helpful. I'm on call 24 hours a day. My phone is always within arm's reach. It's right next to me on my desk. And if there's an emergency, I will pick up the phone and we will navigate how to proceed in those circumstances.
Stephanie, I want to go into another area, and you mentioned probate courts.
Mm-hmm.
And you work with, are you sometimes appointed as a guardian?
I am. I have right now, probably about 14 clients for whom I'm guardian.
So then you deal with the courts. Are you mainly in Washtenaw County, or are you also in Oakland and Wayne counties?
I am kind of all over the place. I am primarily Washtenaw County, but I currently have, I don't like the word wards, but that is the legal term, but I do currently have guardian clients in Oakland, Jackson, Washtenaw, and Livingston.
So you must do a lot of driving because
I do.
You're meeting with clients, you're going to court.
It's my office. Yes, yes.
You're very, very busy. Stephanie, what's interesting is that there's so many services that you provide. I mean, it's very impressive. I also remember reading the Free Press article, and clearly you've created an important niche. Tell us how someone would reach you.
Thank you. So people can reach me by phone. My telephone number is 734-649-9600. I always ask that they either call me or email me. Please do not text because it can be very disruptive if I'm with clients. I don't want to interfere in my time with the client. So an email address is info, I-N-F-O, at micaremanager.com. So info at micaremanager.com. And my website is micaremanager.com. Kind of a play on words, but it's the abbreviation for Michigan, but it's also mycaremanager.com.
So people can reach you quite easily.
Sure.
Stephanie, what do you consider a successful case? Give us some examples.
I think a successful case is when we are able to meet the client where they're at, insofar as they've articulated what their wishes are, recognizing that there might be some element that impacts our ability to achieve that ultimate goal, but that we've been able to meet that goal, whether it be remaining in their home for as long as possible, whether it be finding a place that is going to be a good fit for them, getting them proper treatment. I'm always very, very excited when we're able to establish relationships with the medical providers and be an advocate for that person. My colleague Deb and I often go into appointments with our clients. We will take them to their appointments. We will go in there. We will ask some of the difficult questions that maybe the client doesn't know to ask or is maybe embarrassed to ask. And so it's rewarding when we see things fall into place. I had a situation the other day, one of my clients who unfortunately has a lot of medical stuff going on, and she's often going back and forth to the ER at Michigan Medicine. And the provider called and said that they were sending her home on a particular antibiotic. And I said, she can't have that antibiotic. And there was a pause. And they had not realized that she was allergic to that antibiotic. And thankfully, because of the relationship that I've had with her over the years, I knew immediately that she couldn't have that antibiotic. And so we were able to save her from having an allergic reaction by informing that provider. It was not her primary care, it was an ER provider. So those are the types of things that are very rewarding when you get to establish the relationships and the rapport, and people think to call us if there's a question or concern without having to suffer. They can give us a call. I always tell people I would much rather that you call me and have it be something simple or nothing significant than to avoid calling and find out that there was something that potentially could have been catastrophic.
You mentioned certain things that are rewarding, Stephanie. What do you find most rewarding about your practice and your work? And clearly in this interview, your passion for what you do shows through.
Thank you. I think just being an advocate for people, I've always said, I was always surprised in graduate school how large the cohorts were for children and youth, or for school social work, or for mental health. And the aging cohort was so small. I'm convinced that's why I got into graduate school, because I knew all along I wanted to work with older adults. Just the relationships that I'm able to establish with clients, and many of them can be very, very challenging. Some people can be very angry, very threatened. Dementia can sometimes cause someone to become very, very challenging. But I think just being able to surround myself with older adults who've had so much experience, there's the book, The Greatest Generation. I do think that the older adults have so much wisdom to impart and so many stories to share. And oftentimes they're isolated and shunned, and people don't want to be in the nursing home or the assisted living. And I chuckle. I always tell folks, put me in a room with 5-5-year-olds and I'm going to break out in hives. Put me in a room with 100 people with dementia and I'm in my happy place. So it's a very rewarding group of people to surround yourself with. And I'm grateful that not only am I doing it, but I just, that there's that expression, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I work very hard and I work a lot, but I love what I do.
It shows through.
Thank you.
Stephanie, what about frustrations from your work? I'm sure there are certain things that are not easy.
Mm-hmm. I recently have discovered sometimes dealing with the mental health system can be very challenging. I think we talked a little bit about it when you and I spoke previously. In terms of the mental health code is really, really important in that it protects individuals, but sometimes it can become very, very challenging. And I've been dealing with some of those challenges recently, so that's frustrating. But one has to figure out how to work within those layers and aspects of the code that are meant to protect the individual. I think it can be frustrating sometimes when, the example that I gave previously, you've got the medical system that has access to, now there's a medical record system called Epic. Many, many hospitals throughout the country are on this medical record system. all of that patient's information is right there at their fingertips, but to not take the few minutes to realize this individual has an allergy to that medication. Some of those things can be very, very frustrating. I think the rewards certainly outweigh the frustrations, but it can be a challenge sometimes navigating the healthcare system.
Stephanie, I'm curious, how long are you on a typical case?
That there's no concrete answer for that one. I have some cases where people will call and they just want an assessment and they want some recommendations, and they say they'll take it from there, which is great. I have some clients that I've been with now for 13 years. So it's a wonderful opportunity to build those relationships. What I have found often is that there might be those individuals who don't utilize the services to a significant degree initially, but then resurface. It might be 6 months, it might be a year later. They'll call and say, I don't know if you remember me, but we spoke to you in 2023. And, mom fell, she broke her hip, she's now at the hospital and they're going to be discharging her. We need your help. So there's a lot of kind of frequent flyers and there's kind of the mix.
It's impressive. You really touch on a lot of areas in your work. I mean, you're dealing with economics, you're dealing with law, you're dealing with the court system, you're dealing with doctors and hospitals and the medical system.
Family dynamics.
And exactly. And sometimes that can be the most difficult of all.
It can be. Very much
Stephanie,
so.
we've just got a few moments left. What are some final words of wisdom that you would like to share with us and our viewers before we sign off?
Well, I do want to thank you for bringing awareness to care management. It is a field that is hopefully starting to become a little bit more recognized. We spoke earlier, and I had mentioned when people are announcing their pregnancies, people are lining up to give information and to give resources and referrals and recommendations. Whether they were asked for or wanted is a whole nother question. But when it comes to aging, it's something that people used to not really talk about, and it was shunned, it was avoided. And now bringing awareness to promoting that independence and autonomy and preserving that individual's rights and their ability to participate in their care. I think bringing awareness to the resources and supports is really, really important, and being proactive, making your wishes known. It may not be something that I recommend or agree with, but again, as I say, if you have capacity, it is your life and your ability to decide what is going to be happening down the road. If something happens, then a care manager is there to help to upright that ship, and hopefully nothing catastrophic has happened. But I think it's really important to deal with it, to address it. Mortality, what do they say? Death and taxes are the two things guaranteed in life. And so let's address it. Let's put it on paper, talk about it. I'm not a huge fan of talking about it over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, like some people will suggest. I think that kind of puts a different spin on the holiday weekend. But I do think that it is very important that there be an open, candid conversation with family members if you have that kind of a relationship. And if you don't have family, there are other people that can get involved who can help you to figure out what's next.
Stefanie Sinks, Geriatric Care Manager, you've really enlightened me and our viewers, and I want to thank you so much for being our guest on Gracefully Graying. I want to thank our sponsors and also our viewers for watching Gracefully Graying, and of course Bloomfield Cable for making Gracefully Graying possible.